you have been monitoring behavior on Kik, okay? Is this Kik.tv, like the gambling live streaming platform? Is that what we're talking about?
No, this is Kik Messenger, the app most famous for being grooming central.
I
Every
see.
single American teenager probably has a story related to it.
Welcome to the Gokanaru interview experience, Mr. Genius.
Kind of lucky because I just went to go get water before you did.
Okay, W. What accent am I picking up on right now?
You are picking up English, specifically Mancunian.
Okay. All right. And what exactly, is there anything specific you would like to talk about, or is this do you want me to kind of carry the direction? What's your vibe right now?
There'll probably be a few basic questions to kind of
Okay.
gauge how deep I can get into things. There'll be a little bit of preamble before we get to the meat and potatoes, just to kind of lay out the scene.
Okay. Sounds good. So what are your interests? What are your prime kind of what do you do, in life? You don't need to get specific if you don't want to, but I'm trying to get some context for who exactly I'm dealing with here.
Usually I do a lot of things related in media. It's mostly freelance and ends up shifting every other day.
Nice.
Outside of a job, mostly philosophy or things to make you think.
Fuck
It is
yeah, dude.
always a wonderful way to cleanse one's mental health. Give you
Yeah,
a new perspective.
facts. I completely agree. Yeah, no, I honestly, because that's the whole thing, right? Like for me, especially, at the ripe age of like 17-ish, trying to decide what I wanted to study in like secondary school or whatever. Uh it was tough because I'm definitely oriented in a direction that's more kind of like social sciences, I guess, or whatever you would say. Like, yeah, philosophy is very interesting to me, like whatever, literature, shit like that. But that's often not really viewed as necessarily like practical or whatever. But I find that as I grow older, I realize that like a lot of not just inspiration, but like a lot of the things that I learn in my life are kind of inspired by the things that I learn kind of academically, or like at the very least, you know, the uh the philosophy that I intake, I find does enrich my life. Like it absolutely, in my opinion, makes my life better. Like it's totally a useful thing for me to learn. Not in the sense of like, oh, top 10 life hacks to, make money or whatever. It's more in the sense of like, it makes me feel like I have like a much more like coherent or fulfilling fucking existence, if that makes sense. So yeah,
You studied marketing, right?
what's that?
You studied marketing, right?
Yeah.
See, that actually gives you a surprisingly unique skill for, well, not unique, but a good skill for YouTube, particularly drama.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
unpick a lot of doublespeak a lot of the time. It's usually good to know how that shit starts.
Interesting. Okay, go into that. What do you mean by doublespeak?
Well, take a classic YouTuber apology. A lot of the time, you have to usually pick through the words in order to figure out what someone is usually trying to do, where
Yeah.
they're trying to self accountability, where they're trying to make something seem a lot more significant to a situation than it is.
Yeah.
With marketing, you kind of like learn to accentuate the pros and hide the cons.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I am definitely a bit better at identifying. You call it double speak, and that is what it is. But I would call it more like um, public relations kind of speak, if that makes sense. Like navigating a crisis and trying to say something without revealing what you're actually saying, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, yes, it does help me. Like, I do think that, studying marketing did help me, I guess. The thing that I would definitely say it helped me with was um, understanding how to like present something in an enticing kind of way, if that makes sense. So like for the Sneeko video, I basically had a marketing campaign for that, right? And that marketing campaign was the White Rabbit fucking prank that we did. You know what I mean? Because my whole thing was that fuck, I don't know that this video is intriguing enough, or that it's like, because the whole, so many videos had been made about Sneeko, I was worried that it would just be ignored. And so I basically had to kind of organize a marketing campaign, which ended up being the White Rabbit thing. Yeah, but anyway, I don't want it to be me talking here. I want to hear your insights.
Well, firstly, didn't you say you wanted to grab water and stuff before this started?
Yes. Okay. You have 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes of unfiltered conversation that you can have with my chat. You can say anything. I will not be double checking this. You can literally say anything. I'm fucking trusting you, bro. Please. Okay. Bye.
All right, chat. I'm not going to get anyone banned. This is kind of weird because on the side, I help out with a call line show. One of the biggest things I always tell guests when they go on, don't read chat. So I'm breaking my own rule here. We're going to see how it goes, but you guys are usually quite nice. You guys are quite quiet, lovely and philosophical. What are we saying? We will not be killing him anytime tonight, cooking with silence. He has too many labours of love to finish. But maybe one day. I did miss the last chunk of Dead Rising, the Deep Rising, the other night. I think they're starting an informal movie night in the Discord, I assume. I think it's informal. I'm not 100% sure. But I joined for a little bit and then left, which is kind of a shame because it looked like the kind of B-movie slop that's great to sit down and enjoy and laugh at, but I was very, very tired at the time. Maybe next time. Actually, if you are going to continue doing it, what is the next film going to be? Might as well plug. Cannibalism is based in Red Build. I mean, the sense is there was a lot of red. Sure. Well, you don't really want to be the person who decides to accidentally try human flesh and then get the world's first recorded, like, insane disease. Daisy is going to try to do more X-Files if her internet allows. So that's what to look forward to when you join the Discord. X-Files, Pontypool, got all sorts of shit lined up. Why can't we just advocate for people to be multivitamin pilled? Usually, it's because a lot of multivitamins end up being kind of useless. Like, not useless if you have a balanced and varied diet, but if you already kind of got the vitamins and minerals you need from food, you're basically just making expensive pee. Although, if you are, like, living the poor ramen lifestyle, probably best to grab yourself a few. See, when you know you're alone and you've got a stream running, people are watching, you don't know what's going to happen next. You get this, like, not pit, you get this pull that makes you think, oh god, it's dead silence. We need to fill this silence. We can't be content with just being quiet and nice. We have to entertain people. Jangle those keys. Do I secretly hate Gokanaru and want to wear his flesh? Not wear the flesh, but hate a little bit in the way that when you meet someone who has a great artistic vision, you're always disappointed that they aren't able to give you what you want. They just they have to take their time honing their craft and making their pretty pictures. But we're impatient. We're hungry. Hungry little capitalists, and we need our 99% cheeseburger. Yeah, I considered it, but it'd be a bad luck chemical reaction. I'd prefer getting a new video in like 2 years, however off that might be, over going for quick easy memes. Oh, and Brett Call, I assume you mean me. I usually have out just kind of boring. A lot of people aren't that big a fan unless they're having other things. Usually a texture thing, but I'm usually a big fan.
Hello.
I'm sorry, Butters. Oh,
How,
hi.
how's it going?
Existing in the stream of consciousness of streams.
Okay.
You ever get that? You ever get that feeling when it's this kind of dead silence when you're streaming, and you get this urge that you need to talk and fill the void?
Of course, bro. That's the entire name of the game, is filling the space in between, man. You have to make it feel like it's flowing. The yeah, I usually fill that space with like making a goofy ass face or something, but I understand that that's not exactly in your wheelhouse at the moment. Um what philosophies are you interested in?
I spent a lot of time as a teen very not obsessed but infatuated with nihilism and existentialism. It's
Interesting.
it's actually a boon. A lot of people misread Nietzsche's work and think that he's kind of advocating for people to dive into that great despair, but never really got that. I always found the liberation something that kind of like gave me a reason to keep going. If
Yeah.
there is no grand purpose, then you make one yourself.
Okay. All right. Right off the bat, I like where you're going with this. I like the vibe you're approaching this with. Okay, and so is there anything specifically from Nietzsche that you find life affirming? Because I do think that there's like some black pills for sure. There's some, I don't know. There's a wide array of emotions you can feel. Learning a little bit about fucking Nietzsche's ideas. But yeah, is there any specifically that you find give you feel like they invigor your spirit?
Well, I don't know necessarily about the specific work, but
Okay.
one thing that people have always cited with Nietzsche is the idea that a lot of his work and writing about the Übermensch came from a place of him never being able to attain that because he was very sickly, he was very ill,
Mm-hmm.
didn't really, didn't really have strong social bonds or strong social capital.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, that gave him this very unique insight into what made power or what made things
Yeah.
alluring or desirable and what like the ideals of people were.
Yeah, I would think that it's pretty accurate to say that like most of the time, in my opinion, I think, but the people who are the most hyper aware of power, or at least power dynamics, are usually those who are at the beck and call or at the behest of those who have power. You know what I mean? Like a common thing that people who have power, like even that I interact with on a daily basis, a common thing that people who have power complain about or just make very obvious in the way that they act is that like there's a difference again, but like when you have the power, over people or in your ecosystem or whatever, it feels like if once you have it for a long period of time, it just feels automatic. You know what I mean? It's not a matter of like you're making active decisions all the time to maintain it. It's like you just can take it for granted, and it's like you don't really even consider the consequences. Whereas the people who you have power over always feel the brunt of like that like influence or whatever that you would have over them. But yeah, so I would agree with what you're saying, which is basically that Nietzsche does seem like the type who had no fucking power in his life, and so he spent a lot of time thinking about the nature of power and what it would mean to have it.
It should be inspiring for everyone to see someone be able to take what is ostensibly a weakness and turn it into a strength, especially something that other people can finally take on for their own selves and start either integrating or understanding the world they live in.
Yeah. Yes. What okay, what exactly is your experience with working online? You mentioned that your main kind of wheelhouse is in online content or something related to it. Um
Uh, Sometimes, yes. The most part at the moment, it's helping run a call-in show and occasionally doing like Discord moderation. It's not too crazy.
Nice.
Something
Helping,
that's like a nice way to tune out when you get home after a long day.
yeah, helping to run a call-in show. That sounds kind of similar to what's going on right now. Okay. Is there anything is there anything that you would suggest that we should do to improve this setup?
Personally, I always found it a little, not weird, but a little silly that you didn't incorporate no stupid questions into a call-in show format. If you
Fair.
think about it, it's something nice and simple. You can get people to apply through the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
Just get a role so that way they can be pinged when you go live. And one day, boom, you drop it. And then on top of that, you have the live show, which you can then cut down into legible episodes or up on the main channel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's the idea with no stupid questions? Explain that a little bit more.
Well, basically just a continuation of the fact that you would YouTube comments, usually around a theme, and then kind of stretch that out into an episode.
Yes, yeah,
Instead
sorry.
of having it be question based, it'd just be like a back and forth between different people, you know?
I see. So you think like framing this basically this interviewing format as like no stupid questions themed. Is that
I don't
right?
know if I would use the interview format. I mean more so in like using Discord people for content.
Ah, okay. I think I get what you're saying. Like having no stupid questions, people can ask the questions on the Discord type of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea. I want to really bring that series back with a big bang. So I do like that you are even aware of the series because not everyone is. Um, okay, all right. So what is there anything I saw something along the lines of like you have been monitoring behavior on Kik, okay? Is this Kik.tv like the gambling live streaming platform? Is that what we're talking about?
No, this is Kik Messenger, the app most famous for being grooming central.
I
Every
see.
single American teenager probably has a story related to it.
Interesting. Okay, I've never used Kik. Um, what exactly is Kik? I don't even know much about it. You just said it's a messaging, kind of like a messaging platform.
Yeah, so it kind of launches in 2011. And at the time, it was the first real kind of like internet relay chat was available on smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
It was really easy to make. You only needed an email address. You didn't have to mess around too much with signing up. And it was relatively big up until 2018, 2019. People started moving on to other places, particularly after it got its notoriety for being grooming central, basically.
Yep. Okay, understood. So, what is Kik comparable to exactly? Like, what other platforms would you compare it to?
The best modern day analog for now would probably be WhatsApp.
Okay, okay, so what exactly are the horror stories of what you've seen on Kik? I'm kind of confused because WhatsApp is basically just like a messaging platform, right? I,
Yeah.
is it at all comparable to Snapchat, right? Because I imagine that there's probably a lot of like, you know, nefarious things happening on Snapchat as well.
There are some parallels, yes. One of the big features that Kik has is messages aren't saved on a cloud or on a server unless you're offline. So you go online, you receive a message, you log out of the app, all of that messaging history is basically gone. So
Okay.
in a way, it is kind of close to
I
Snapchat
see,
in
I
that sense.
see. So this is like a primary kind of resource of predators because of the lack of traceability or because of the lack of history in the chats? Like what are the main appeals?
Basically, that in before other platforms became very popular, it was basically the most anonymous you could be without like flashbanging someone on a Megal.
I see. I see.
Um,
So was there any
the
random like aspects? Like was it like Omegle in that it pairs you with like random people online, or was it more of like a traditional messaging website? Like did you need to know the person or like know their email or something like that?
you usually just need to know your username, but in that sense, the kind of Changed a little bit in the last few years. They have added a live stream feature, which, when you've got a live stream competitor, isn't great.
Yeah.
The three main formats that you would have is you could do random chats, kind of like Omegle. You press a button and someone is randomly matched with you based on your interests. You have like individual group messages where you're just speaking to someone else. And then you have group chats, which are public and usually searched by hashtag. There'd be trending tags that they'd put on their like main page for like a few months on the search. And there'd be a growing meta where people would learn these new tags, make group chats to sit there, and then slowly funnel them into kind of like smaller or more private circles, which is usually kind of like second step of where a lot of this grooming would happen.
I see. Okay. And so what exactly was your function when you were, because like, okay, first of all, yeah, explain like what exactly your relation to this platform is.
So I joined around 2018 and I left, I think, around mid 2021. I mostly use it to either speak to people that I was already close to or just find places to kind of like shoot the shit when I had like 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. You didn't use it to groom kids?
No.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
I was actually introduced to it and kind of like encouraged to it. A minor in the legal sense in the US. I used to do a lot of work with a youth group, and one of them used to be quite active on it, and it was one of the reasons why I ended up joining.
Okay.
I was leaving the project, and this is a kid that I'd known for a few years, so it was like a way to stay in touch.
I see. Yeah.
And then kind of, I worked my way through it, as most people do. You end up meeting people who put you in other places, and then you start learning more darkness, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think after a few years, I met a group that made modified versions of the client so that way law enforcement or vigilantes would have an easy time kind of like tracking people down.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like, I'm going to censor us a little bit so you can understand, because our story starts when the pandemic starts, but there's a few details that we need to like get on the page straight away.
Okay.
So in 2017, Kik is basically the biggest version of a messaging app that you can find for teenagers.
Kik is
studying in Atlanta.
Kik is the biggest in 2017?
Yes.
Okay.
40% of American teenagers are on the app.
40%?
And out of 40% in...
Holy fuck.
This was an Atlanta study.
Yeah.
And on top of that, of the 15 million monthly active users, only 57% were under the age of 25.
Wow.
Give you a decent idea for the ages. The first domino that happens in 2017, they were a little bit ahead of the game. They started a cryptocurrency called Kin.
King?
They used it to Kin. AIN.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I've never heard of this. Okay, yeah, go on, sorry.
Don't worry, most people haven't. They launched this in the side, and they raise about 85 million in people buying it. This is like before Bitcoin has had its really big surge and managed to like hit like 50,000 or so.
Yeah.
Then in 2019, as people are starting to wane away from the app, the SEC decides to sue Kik because of their ownership of Kin, and they call it securities fraud. They say, oh, you're using this to raise money to keep your app going. This isn't actually about creating a security.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite funny because it's the main reason why we have a lot of the other legislation, but the knock-on effect with this is that they basically said, okay, we're going to have to sell the app. We're going to have to shut it down or sell it. And then they get a buyer in 2019, Media Lab. This creates three really big structural problems. Because first of all, they've not actually sold the app to this new company. They've given them rights to create changes and make edits, but importantly, they haven't given them access to things like moderation tools. They haven't given them access to basic admin things on the Play Store. For about 3 years, they didn't have access to the main reporting systems that they had inside of the app. It's just how fucked this like sell agreement was. They owned it, but they didn't really own it.
And that company was called Media Lab?
Yes, Media Lab.
Okay. Okay,
Around this time,
so
as after they've
they
bought
bought
it, and
Kik. They bought Kik, but they didn't know, or they didn't have the rights to actually develop on it.
it was, as I remember, they basically agreed to resell. It wasn't a hey, we're going to sell you everything in the company. Let me just really quickly check my notes.
Mm-hmm. No worries.
Yeah, they were made holding owners, so they didn't own the IP.
I see,
They didn't
holding
own
owners.
any of the surrounding things. They had the app. If anyone was going to be sued for what happened on the app, the original Kik team still had responsibility. They were doing this in order to try and keep their cryptocurrency alive, which didn't succeed. Died in 2023.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But this kind of starts the cascade of what starts to happen in the pandemic. As you can probably tell, having no access to moderation tools and no access to all of your backend things usually means anyone who wants to do whatever they want. So a lot of people around the time before the pandemic started were modified versions of these apps that went out and were very common, mostly because of the fact they had exploits. So back to WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
What do you usually see when you send a message on WhatsApp?
It's encrypted, something like that.
Beyond that, like think of the actual like screen. You usually get a message, but you might get told whether or not it's sent from Wi-Fi or whether or not it's sent from other things, and you'll get things like read receipts. You'll know whether things have been read and seen. If you send photos, you might be able to tell whether they're from your phone gallery or whether they're taken with your actual phone.
I see.
Like you've taken them live.
Okay.
Most of these exploits were based around this. So, in effect, you would download an app that will allow you to do things like disable your read receipts and then fake that you're using actual photos when you're just sending things that you've found online.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the big problems that centered around this is there was a modification made specifically for helping people track predators and limit their accounts locked. It was called Piro. You familiar with the Greek alphabet?
Yep.
It's basically the P
Mm-hmm.
is in reference to the creator, who was a little bit of a pyromaniac. And then essentially what this would do is it would allow you to bypass the usual message restrictions and allow you to send pure code in XMPP. So basically you'd be able to do things like mess with someone's account, usually by bricking it and making it unusable, or doing things like slowing it down, spamming them out until they had to log out or shut their phone down and drain their battery, that kind of thing.
Okay.
This has the kind of knock-on effect of, as the pandemic starts and there are millions of people now stuck at home with nothing to do, a lot of them think, okay, I'm just going to start going online. So you have this kind of confluence of new people who have no idea what the app's really about, and a lot of seasoned people who have access to this kind of inherited modified version that would allow them to do a lot of catfishing or social engineering very easy. Maybe two at the time the pandemic started properly that were relatively successful. I'm going to focus on the main one, which I learned doing a bit of research. The creator actually came back and started going, called Blue Piro. It was very popular because it was basically the main thing that people used. There were a lot of other modified versions, but this was the kicker. It would have a lot of those fancy scripts for doing things like making private chats unusable or bricking someone's account all at the click of a button. Very simple.
I see.
The kind of knock-on effect of this being really public is that, as I said before, you get a lot of people who suddenly don't know the rules of the game, and a lot of people who are able to mask their actual intentions.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a lot easier, say, instead of having to bluff your way into, let's say you meet a 14-year-old and you start speaking to them, a very common tactic is pretend that you're around the same age, so that way they get kind of like a bond going.
Right.
A lot harder to prove that if you're playing by normal rules, but you can do things like just fake a selfie of a random 14-year-old you found on Instagram and then boom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like socially engineer it. What exactly was the actual
Yeah, basically.
exploit? What was the actual exploit though? Sorry, I didn't fully understand.
The main ones for this that I'm describing is there was a little check under photos you'd send that would tell you whether or not it was sent from someone's camera, as in they'd taken it
Ah,
right that second,
I
or from a
see.
gallery.
I see.
Basically, yeah, the exploit just allowed people to pretend they were sending real things.
I see.
You
So right, so it would basically like a predator would send a picture of a 14-year-old that they found online, but they were able to make it look like this was just a photo that they took off their camera like just a second ago.
yes,
Right.
basically.
So it basically establishes more rapport. I get what you're saying. It's like, yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
These things were quite common for Kik beforehand, but in late 2019 to 2020, this is where the exploits became a lot more known.
Hmm.
Which is the kind of like ruining people's private chats, making them unusable through a method called bricking. It's
Hmm.
basically where you make something unworkable. It's like if you put your iPhone in the microwave and pull it out and it doesn't turn out anymore. Wow,
Yeah.
I just bricked my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah. And so, so part of this exploit would allow these like predators or these I don't know exploiters to brick someone's phone by overloading it with information.
Kind of, yeah. That's the best technical explanation we'll have without getting bogged down in the weeds.
Fair enough. Okay. Okay.
Like I say, pandemic starts. You've got these new millions of people coming in, and you've got all of these people with these tools. And at this time, Media Lab as a company are kind of aware that this is becoming a big problem. They know that people are selling exploits, but they also have no way of really fixing it.
Hmm.
So for about 6 months, I think the main fix that they sent out was in October. For the first few months, as pandemic started, basically the kind of it was free reign for people who wanted to exploit and do a lot of things with the nation's youth. They had carte blanche, and it was very easy to do. And on the side of that, you have these kind of like classic group wars, kind of like you will find with Discords or any other social media, where people will go and raid other chats and do all sorts of things, which is usually okay when you're just talking about pure numbers, but when you have someone who can just, kick the ball and stop the game,
Hmm.
it was a bit of a different story.
Yeah.
One of the main players at the time, going back to the mentioned Blue mod, had a decent racket selling premium versions of the app that would send more things, allow for more exploits, things like grabbing someone's IP, things like
I see.
being able to do other exploits with someone's account. He made a pretty penny doing this for a while. The only reason he was able to be stopped is by the work of one person called Link, who,
Dude, Legend of Zelda?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, what tell me about fucking Link, dude. Link was you said that basically Link stopped this, right?
yeah. So they were an old school kick person and very big into programming. And after a while of a group of old heads who had been lobbying Media Lab to try and fix things, they tried through the usual methods and found out the only way they could actually get any support was going through email. It still took them months to go through. So instead of trying too hard to force the devs to fix things, what he did was he got a regular premium copy of it for free from someone, removed all of the kind of obfuscation that you'd put into an app, and then released it for free publicly as a way to force Media Lab's hand to do something.
Hmm.
They kind of did. They took a fix that they created for it and applied it. It only worked for Android users. And another downside of this mod is you could tell who was using Android or iPhone. So it created this extra grey zone for a while where people on Android would be immune to a lot of these tricks, but people on iOS were sitting ducks.
Hmm.
It was stopped for a little while, but kind of after that, because Media Lab is still not doing anything, other versions of this pop up, other little mods and exploits. other people start selling things, and Media Lab continues to sit on their hands. Meanwhile, people are trying to go to their terms of service, try and figure things out. Favorite part of this terms of service thing is give advice for teenagers who are being groomed. The first pieces of advice that they give is that if you receive a sexually explicit image, you need to delete it right away and report it. And then on the next page of said terms of service, if you've deleted a photo, we'll be unable to recover it or use it as an actioning method. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Please delete the evidence so that we can't do anything about it.
That I just realized how that sounds. Yeah, no, that is strange. Delete it and then report it. Yeah, I guess. Well, it could be on their servers or something.
No, that was the point, because they had there was a period between 2011 and 2017 where police and other law enforcement agencies had rated it the most dangerous app for children.
I see.
The biggest honeypot.
Because they didn't take the data. Basically, they didn't have. It was not.
Yeah, they basically doubled down and made it even harder for authorities to come through. They basically went, hey, look, everything gets saved on people's phones. If they don't come online, that's the only way we have access to things.
Wow. Okay. And so what did Link do exactly? Sorry? Like, was Link... His thing was that he basically managed to counter... What was it called? The exploiting systems, which were... What was it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, basically. He update released it to people, which also helped quite a few, because on the side, people who used the free or premium versions all installing remote access tools. It was saving things like chat logs, it was saving things like device info, stuff that you really shouldn't be handing over to a random person. And the people who paid specifically, they were probably quite annoyed to learn that they'd given out their entire chat history to some random person.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, and so sorry, your specific involvement, is it like one-on-one with the victims, or is it just like basically like advocating for trying to improve these systems so that they're more trackable? Like, what's the what was your main role?
I mean, it was mostly giving out, making sure people have the tools to not get kind of like either spoofed or bricked, and then also kind of I helped run a small little like bot that would help fix people's accounts if they received a message that would end up bricking them, so that way they'd be able to log back in.
I see. Okay. Nice. Okay. So would you call that like technical support? Like, what was the context of your, like, what exactly got you into doing this?
I had some free time in the pandemic, and I realized very quickly how much of a nightmare this would be out on the kind of like digital streets, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of felt a little compelled to go out there and do something, because it's one of those where if a lot of people who are ignorant to the system, then the system can only win. The only way you can really beat it, if someone isn't going to go from the top down and do anything about it, is to make everyone aware, hey, these are the rules. Don't believe anything.
I see. Okay. All right. And so, at what point did your helping with this like stop? Like, what was the time period that you were mainly doing this?
Between mid 2020 to about April of 2021. Can't remember when they announced their live streaming platform part. That was basically the moment that me and quite a few people ended up leaving, because I understood that, like, obviously the app is struggling. There's not a ton of new people and there's not a lot of easy ways to make money, but still haven't been able to patch out a lot of these exploits, and it's still really easy for people to become like predators without having to really do anything. You can pretend to be a hacker while all you're doing is pressing a few buttons and a very convincing diatribe. And
Yeah,
their solution to that is to add live streaming. Like, okay,
that's funny.
you
Yeah.
don't give a fuck, so all right.
Yeah, true. No, clearly, yeah. I think they probably understood that this was actually a competitive advantage that they had. Was, hey, we got all of these fucking kids on this app. Guess what? You predators, we're gonna turn a blind eye. It's gonna be really fucking easy for you boys to pluck from this, pool of people. Um, yeah, I don't know. What was there any specific cases or stories or interactions that you had on Kick in relation to these predation kind of you know situations that you find would be like a memorable experience?
Overall vibe, it left me very demoralized
I see.
because I knew a lot of people who grew up kind of like in their teens on Kick, and they saw the problem and did a lot of things to help. And there were groups of people who were professionally trying to find these creeps
Mm-hmm.
and get some kind of law enforcement response. But almost every time they would get stonewalled. A lot of people did a lot of good work in order to try and properly get people caught, and almost all of it was in complete waste.
I see.
There's at the time, I think he was like a 20-year-old kid. He spent the last like 9 months when I'd first met him trying to set up victim report pages and do a lot of work to try and forward a lot of these stories to the FBI. It was really inspiring at first, being like, "Oh, cool! That must be cool. You must be doing a lot of work." But I'd have to respond like, "No, I pass a lot of these tips on, and almost every single thing gets ignored until the person's caught on another charge. At which point, I get the email like, "Oh, hey, can you tell us more about this?"
Mm-hmm. I see. So it's basically like you got blackpilled on realizing that the legal system is not exactly emphatic about chasing down random online predators.
It opens your eyes to how we're all machines. We're all profit printing machines for social media companies.
Yeah,
Like, if you use Discord, your participation in it, even if you're not being served ads, is being used to sell something.
right.
For
Like,
buying nitro, or you're being used as a, hey, we've got this many people, come give us money.
yeah, I mean, the way that I've heard it said, which is, in my opinion, just accurate, is that with the vast majority of social media companies, we as consumers, we are not viewed as the customers. We are viewed as the product. The customers are usually, the advertising agencies or whatever other interested parties that need the data and or that could use the data to fucking make money on their own. And so yeah, it's definitely, confronting that fact and putting so much time and energy and effort into trying to actually, clean up a platform that clearly just does not care, and then also trying to navigate a legal system that also does not fucking care. I can understand how that would be demoralizing. Um, are there any platforms today that give you a similar vibe to Kick that should be looked out for? Like if there's any young people who would be using it who could be falling into similar cycles?
With the same force multipliers, probably not. The main one that most people, well, the main two really, would be Discord or Monkey. Discord, you kind of like don't really need to explain. Everyone who's used it already knows the memes.
With Monkey?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, you've already seen it with like Sneeko and Zerka and all of these streamers who will use it for content who will end up finding a lot of kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
if you as a streamer are doing that and finding people, not only is it showing, hey, this is really easy for you to like find minors, you're
Facts.
advertising it,
That's a good point,
but
actually.
the fact that a lot of them are able to get away with wild stuff that probably breaks their TOS on stream, yet that's still able to go back to it for content, should also say something.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point. I didn't. I actually did not think about the fact that beyond like when Zerka and Sneeko would make, viral monkey clips where they, basically, uh, whether they act like or are or pretend to be fucking predators, but basically when they hit on a kid and then they act surprised when the kid says they're like 15 years old. I never thought about this angle, but yes, I imagine that those kinds of clips, which do go viral, get millions of views because have funny moment, they're pedophiles. When those go viral, there's definitely a demographic of people who see those clips and they're like, dude,
There's a
that's the
slightly
spot.
worse dynamic on top of that.
What's that?
There's a video released like a while ago by, I think it was a dude called Some Chickens, exposing a Kik predator.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've seen that video. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot
Pull it
of
up.
well-intentioned people who are like trying to highlight the problem of Kik and how easy it is for editors or other people to exist. And while that's really good for people to know, it also has the, for every 9 well-meaning people who find things like child abuse or exploitation really unsavory, there's one person who's like, oh, you can get away with that over there. You can get away with a lot of stuff. The TOS isn't there. Okay, I'm going to go there. Find a few streamers that they like. They see the apps that they're using and able to get away with stuff. Suddenly they know exactly where to go to get their fix. It's one of those no one can really win, because by talking about it, you tell people where to go, and no one important listens. And to the people who on the service and are doing things, there's zero profit incentive for them to look after minors.
Yeah.
You saw it with Instagram, like you had influxes of senior leads leading the team, leaving the team, because they were like, hey, it's too easy to message minors inappropriately. I've got a 14-year-old who's getting like sexual advances by people. Can we just make a button so that way they can't message the minors? They still did nothing about it until this year. Until all of the regulatory bodies in the world went, hey, this is a problem.
This is
It's been
Monkey.
a problem for the last 6 years. No, Instagram.
I see Instagram. Yeah. I definitely see what you're saying. So yeah, it might not be the best to frame it as like, oh, these companies are profiting necessarily off of predators or predatory behavior. But it's that they have no financial incentive to prevent it, to like be proactive in tackling it and trying to understand it and adjust their fucking algorithms and services to, combat that. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, the only time that they'll act to protect or to cover their own fucking asses is when they do get basically hot water drawn below them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you remember with YouTube, they had a bit of a moment like that where Matt Watson, he actually did expose an exploit that definitely was being used by fucking predators to react to kids' content in a sexual way on YouTube. And YouTube never would have given a fuck about this unless it turned into an advertiser boycott. Like, that Matt guy was correct in his approach, which was, if you want YouTube to listen, you actually have to fucking hit them where it hurts. Obviously, in that case, that affected and affects content creators too. So that's why a lot of content creators are also kind of roped into not wanting this type of shit to, cause a boycott. But no, I mean, that's just facts. Like, they're not going to listen until there's a consequence in the making. You know what I mean? They're not going to preemptively prevent it.
One thing that worried me about that situation and worries me about future ones is there is a profit incentive for every creator, even if they see good side of having a boycott that forces YouTube to change things. We're incentivized as hell to make it seem worse, to make the idea that this is happening seem bad, or to smear everyone that was partaking in it look bad. I mean, look what happened to Matt Watson. He started doing that, and instead of people seeing the valid sides of things, he started looking into his history to make him look as embarrassing as possible so no one would take him seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of the fact that a lot of big creators turned around and went, hey, this is bullshit, they shouldn't be able to do this. And then the audience reacted to that and started finding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a strong reaction from creators against Matt Watson. I definitely understand why, but a big part of the real reason why was literally just the monetary nervousness, and also, like, I do think that, yeah, this is kind of a valid potential. You could say it's a conspiracy, whatever, but like, YouTube as a platform, because I speak on YouTube because that's like obviously the platform I'm the most well acquainted with, but it definitely has a fucking incentive. Um, when an advertising boycott does happen, right? Now it is a precedent has basically been set where like content creators will fervently resist any kind of like actual accountability being brought to YouTube Corporation, because YouTube Corporation being brought to accountability has a direct negative impact on them, right? So like they have like the small business mindset, which is like, dude, this is gonna slightly fuck over Google Corp, and maybe the platform will be a little bit better, but my personal livelihood will get fucking rocked. It'll get nuked. So definitely a fucking complicated thing to navigate, but yeah, I mean, Matt Watson was correct. If you want to see a change in these companies, you have to fucking hit them where it hurts, which is the bottom line. You need to make yourself heard in a capacity beyond just like an annoying fucking person yelling in their ear. You need to actually be a threat. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Now there's a new kind of scandal with scandal in quotes. I think there's two. There's someone mentioned this in your Discord a while ago. The BEG meta, where if you search the word BEG, you immediately your search is flooded with like edits from porn, or like Daisy's Destruction and stuff like that, or like softcore scenes from different films. And recently you've got the bots who fill people's comments with names. It ends up being like a personal information mine thing.
Really? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Damn, I'm not even up to date on that. That's crazy.
Yeah, you might find some of this in your own comment sections when you scroll through it, but recently there's been a thing where even on low view or high view videos, there will be comments made by new, fresh accounts. They're just like a collection of names. Sometimes it doesn't really make sense, but it's just a selection of names just printed out there. There's a few theories on what it actually is, like what the purpose of it is.
I see.
I assume it's something to do with either personal info or just kind of like a more sophisticated botnet.
That's
I mentioned the BEG thing specifically because it seems like the kind of thing that they were cracking down on with ElsaGate and other things, and I'm not sure how the situation's going to get resolved now that they have the whole like you can be nude on YouTube as long as it's like medical or professional or educational or artistic.
Yeah. Yeah, the like nudity parameters are pretty well, last I checked at least. They were pretty fucking like loose. Like it's not very strict, but I mean that all makes sense to me because obviously I don't think they lose very much by basically, you know, posting not safe for work content that's like borderline, you know what I mean? Because yeah, they would just prefer that people fucking jack off on youtube.com than go to an alternative website, obviously. But okay, so what content do you watch or consume, or like what's your wheelhouse of content that you consume nowadays? Like what specific communities on YouTube or wherever are you most affiliated with, or do you most kind of consume?
I usually flip between. Usually nowadays, my spaces are more politics focused or social commentary. Really,
I see.
I became fascinated by the potential of streaming. This is like traditional broadcasters. The fact that one person with a camera can spend a few $1,000s and basically match whatever any big network is putting out, and people will watch it. It's like something that's really cool to me, anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I'm doing it right now, so I agree with you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Usually I actually use YouTube for music. So once you've got a decent algorithm trained for it, you can find a lot of good stuff with it. And I prefer it over Spotify because the payments for artists are usually a lot better through YouTube.
Interesting. I didn't know that. But I also use YouTube to find new music. I agree. The algorithm's pretty good for it. Okay, that was a very vague answer. what kind of content are you consuming politically? I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to be specific, but I'm curious to get to know you, my friend.
Well, I consider myself moderately left wing, so I try to keep tabs on not what the opposition is saying, but learn a bit about other people's perspectives. Usually online, it can be a little bit dry, especially when you're dealing with like streaming, because obviously
You said
it's so
dry?
long form. It takes
Okay. Yeah, go
I
on.
mean, you had to research Nico videos. You're sitting there for a day watching like
Yeah.
8 hour VODs. Most of that isn't going to be action packed, right?
Yes, no, you're correct about that.
Usually is a case of not necessarily following specific creators, but following topics that you have an interest in at the time
Yes.
and
Yes.
hoping you find something from them.
That actually is kind of how I consume content. Yeah, I don't necessarily have any staples in my life that I'm always watching. I'm pretty flexible with who I'll watch. It's usually kind of I basically scroll through a bunch of new people pretty often. It's rare for me to find someone that I'll just watch forever. It's like phases. Okay, all right. So you succeeded. You succeeded in not mentioning one specific YouTuber, but um, I would be curious to. I would be curious to know. Okay, what's your favorite video game?
I'm like you, I don't really game.
Is that it? Was that an accusation? Saying it? You saying I'm fucking?
Hey, I'm repeating from the puppet master's mouth, okay? I'm repeating from your mouth, actually.
Are
What
you
am I
saying?
saying?
Are you saying I'm a fucking gamer?
Saying you're not a gamer. Saying we're like. I used to find a lot of enjoyment in it, but big switch to microtransactions in a lot of paid games really soured a lot of what I used to enjoy about gaming.
Okay. Okay. You have any favorite movies?
Depends on what mood you're in. I really enjoy a film called Filth. It's James McAvoy. People only really kind of paid attention to it at the time because he was like trailers came out and he was like cross dressing in it.
Interesting.
I really, I really like it because it's one of the best displays and examinations of what you'd call toxic masculinity before it became a buzzword.
Ah, I see. Interesting. Okay. So he's like a
I
dickhead
will warn
cop.
you if you watch it. Yeah, I will warn you if you watch it. It's not fun.
Oh, is
It
it
will depress you. Don't watch it on a
really?
bad day.
Yeah. Is that fucked up?
It slowly but surely gets there. It's not got a happy ending. That's about it.
Ah, fuck. You're selling me a picture of yourself as though you're like there's a dark cloud kind of over your head, but do you find that you're generally a pretty inspired person? You find that nowadays you're doing better, or what's your vibe lately?
Oh, like I said before, it's a lot of people a lot of people get depressed with deep or philosophical things. I usually quite enjoy it. I like being confronted with the fact that I'm gonna die one day. No one really cares about what you're doing right now except you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've gotta find a way to make it hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I think that's fair. Okay.
Did you, when you made the Sneeko video, did you intend for it to be as stream focused? Because one of the threads that I got from it was very much you. I think you described on the horseshoe theory that it was kind of chaotic and there was a lot of segments and it felt like you were jumping between a lot of side characters.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that actually worked perfect for what watching a streamer for a long time is.
Yes, yes,
Very
yes.
disorganized, it's very hectic, there's just shit going on.
No, I was trying to simulate the experience of actually like following Sneeko during this period because it was so fucking chaotic. There was so many fucking people coming in and out of streams, and there was so many like so many aggressively uh edgy or offensive opinions just being presented as though they're like normal, you know what I mean? That it was such a strange thing because Sneeko got so desensitized so fast to the like the fucked up nature of some of the people and the opinions that he would have on. Like I showed, right, his initial reactions to Fuentes, and then I showed how quickly he was like, "Yeah, this is my friend. He's like a just quirky. He's a little quirky, like little neo-Nazi type guy. He's just thinks that whites are superior to blacks and all that, whatever." And so yeah, it was in a large way. It was me trying to capture in as efficient a way as possible the feeling and the chaos of actually watching those fucking streams and being there for that transition. Because look, one thing that's just a fact is there was a period of time when like Sneeko did capture the fucking spectacle. He rode that Andrew Tate wave super successfully, and the energy that was present at that time was fucking undeniable, right? Like everyone was talking about him very suddenly, and so yeah, I was just trying to capture the chaos of that because again, most people heard about Sneeko because he was making so much noise that it was hard to avoid him. But if you were actually watching his fucking streams at that time, dude, it was a roller coaster. I totally understand the appeal if you're like a young fucking guy who doesn't necessarily have that much direction. It's like, damn, this is fun. It's exciting. All this offensive shit that no other fucking YouTuber is even allowed to talk about. This guy's just exploring it with all these fucking weirdos. I understand the appeal, And so I was trying to understand. I was trying to basically like present it in a way where it's like, oh shit. Like, okay, so there's the portion where I'm basically like pointing out all of his hypocrisy. It's like the first, within the first, I think, 20 minutes. It's one of the tightest and one of my favorite chapters because I'm basically like showing how quickly he swaps between his opinions. But the biggest thing that I was, because I remember I showed an early copy of this to somebody, and basically they said like, why did you put such like upbeat music? This is like fucking depressing. This is like horrible, right? And because you're watching this segment and you're basically seeing a guy go.
Dear sad British man, I suggest the song Important and also Hating Stuff by Ian McConnell when you get the chance. Also, Chad absurdism smiley face nothing matters is vastly superior to doom and nihilism. I say this with general platonic homie love.
Nice. Sorry, I just got a donation that mentioned you. I'll repeat it in a second, but basically, yeah, that segment where I was basically showing how quickly he swapped his fucking opinions, opportunistically. When a normal person watches that, they're just like, oh my god, first of all, this guy is fucked, right? Like, he clearly has no sense of identity. Second of all, like, this is fucked up, right? Like, this is a guy with, hundreds of thousands of followers who is just like casually presenting neo-Nazi talking points and saying the earth is flat and saying like dancing in like a Ku Klux Klan outfit. And the answer is yeah. I think it's fucked up. But the reason I add the kind of like super whimsical music, that's almost upbeat, you can interpret it as like ecstatic or exciting music, is because for the people who were on that wave, including Sneeko, it was fucking fun. They were having fun beyond all these opinions, beyond all the toxic cancer or whatever. It was clearly fun for them to transgress in all these ways. And so that's why I put the whimsical fun music, and then toward the end of it, I basically suddenly cut the music when a moment of reality hits, when Sneeko actually interfaces with the real fucking world, and he basically transgresses against a dude who's just like trying to do his job, which was like riding elephants. And it's just like I wanted to basically have that harsh cut of like, oh yeah, oh fuck, a real world exists where my stream idiocy is not entertained. You know what I mean? So yeah,
What did you learn most about yourself while going through that?
it's a good question.
There would have been a lot of self-reflection
Oh,
while
yeah.
you kind of sat there in this like bedrock phase with nothing but the stream and your own stream of consciousness.
Yeah. What did I learn the most about myself? Fuck. I learned a lot about myself, bro. Ugh. But Jesus, there's a lot to. But if I'm gonna say one thing, it would be okay. It would be that Okay, it would be that I really understood how this happened to fucking Sneeko, like how he fell down this rabbit hole, whatever. And it made me realize that, like, given a different context, this totally, all this shit I totally could get the fucking appeal of this. Um, but yeah, another thing that I definitely fully accepted, I guess, is that I hate, I hate making this type of content, but I fucking love it. And what I mean by that is that I know that in my gut, I know that this is, like, kind of destructive, very negative content, and there's a conflict there because to center your fucking existence around and being aware that you're centering your existence around a kind of destructive uh you know thing is a bit difficult. But at the same time, I love it because there's something about just the chaos that I really fucking like, right? Like, why the hell did I have the idea to do the white rabbit thing? I told you that it was a marketing tactic, and that's true, partially, of course. But the bigger reason why I wanted to do the white rabbit thing was because I just wanted to see what the fuck his reaction would be. And it exceeded my expectations, to be honest. Like, again, when I successfully did that, I had an immense amount of relief, like an instant, just so much weight just off of my body. But I also had a kind of sick feeling in my stomach. You know what I mean? Where it's like, wow, I really just did that to somebody in front of thousands of people. Holy fuck. Um, so yeah, I don't know. There's something about uh channeling your energy in a kind of mask off uh negative way that I really, really enjoy. But I also I'm just, like, aware that it's not fucking healthy. Um, because yeah, that's the thing. Like, interpersonally, right? I really try not to fucking fuck people over. I really try not to be a dickhead to people interpersonally that I know in real life. And so I'm a bit of a weirdo in the sense that the internet is my outlet to present the worst version of myself. Does that make sense? Like, it might not make sense to you. I don't really know how you would think about what I'm saying, but, like, I felt this the most, I think, potently when I made the H3H3 video, because that guy was he was beloved at that time. And I looked like a fucking lunatic for basically, like, simulating shooting him. Um, and so, yeah, like, I just remember thinking, like, man, wow, if someone looks me up on YouTube, it's like me shooting another man in the head. You know what I mean? That's weird, right? Because again, in my real life, I try to be like this, like a considerate fucking person or whatever. But then online, I'm trying to wreak kind of havoc. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the other thing that I learned about myself was my degree of nervousness, my anxiousness is entirely linked to my actual, like, it's almost entirely rational. Um and what I mean by that is that when I made the H3H3 video, I was very fucking nervous. I had so much adrenaline, and a lot of the adrenaline and a lot of the nerves definitely came from the fact that I had never, you know, had that much exposure online. But I think the bigger reason why I actually, like, couldn't sleep at night and all this shit was because I knew that video was imperfect in a lot of ways. And I felt the difference with the Sneeko situation because I pretty well knew that the Sneeko video I created was perfect, at least to me, all near perfect. It's not perfect. I see flaws and I know that there's flaws, but it's, like, so fucking so polished, and I put so much time into it that releasing it, like, there was this authentic confidence that I felt that is truly like an earned confidence. Whereas with the other one, it was like I was actually nervous for a pretty legitimate reason, which was that, holy fuck, this video is getting so many views. H3 could respond to this, and there are issues with some of the points that I make. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Remember the follow-up that you did? You mentioned kind of like the toll that it had been taking, the fact that you weren't really able to sleep and you were living off this adrenaline.
Yeah,
A lot of creators now that go through a cancel culture phase where they have to deal with that adrenaline. What would your advice to them be?
Okay, so there's also a direct correlation with anxiousness, adrenaline, all this shit from online activity. There's a direct correlation between that and how terminally online you are, right? So like if you have a fulfilling external world, right, where you have friends who care about you, like you, whatever, you have, you know, you're in a relatively stable living condition, you have family, you have you're eating well, you're exercising, just general kind of like stability, and your life is fulfilling and all this. If your life outside of the internet is solid, then you are just way, way, way better equipped to deal with any kind of online controversy. And again, when it comes to like at the time of me making the H3 video, it's like I'm a fucking college student, so part of me is like worried about, and I think this is a rational fear, but I'm partially worried about like some person in H3's audience finding where I go to school and like calling the fucking school and like getting me kicked out or some shit like that. There's a part of me that is, you know, obviously very like insecure in the sense of like I'm working like a part-time job and I have all these school projects and fucking essays that I can't focus on, right? I'm not seeing my family as much. I'm not seeing my friends as much because I'm so busy with work, school, whatever. There's like basically the time in my life when the internet was where I got the vast majority of my fulfillment, or where I felt like most of my, you know, ambitions were projected. That's when any kind of destabilizing and energy brought to the internet, brought to me or whatever, like affected me just a lot more. But yeah, pretty much it.
I think one issue that I have with that in terms of advice for other people is compared to where you are now versus then, content creation probably wasn't really a job for you, right? It was just kind of a hobby that, because of this, blew into this really big thing and suddenly gave you a viable career.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But a lot of people, when they've got like, you know, smallish channels living off Patreon subs and kind of like making do on the ad revenue, only so much a normal support structure will do, because of that human nature of knowing whether you're still going to have a job next week is a lot more acute online, especially when you're worried you're about to lose it all.
Yeah, to be fair, I definitely, that could still happen to me in the sense of like if my YouTube channel gets removed, I'm pretty fucked. There's a lot of ways I can get fucked, but in terms of like social shaming, like a cancel culture in like a more traditional, I guess, sense, where it's just like social shaming, of course that's going to be easier to handle if you have people in your like day-to-day life who, you know, aren't going to shame you or whatever. But I think that another reason why it affected me more when YouTube wasn't my prime fucking income was because I wanted it to be my prime income, so I was like, the hope was so much more acute. And yeah, I don't know. I think what you're saying is correct, though. I think what you're saying is correct. Like there are people who can literally like lose their platforms, like Monkey Jones style. And I would count that as cancellation. I would. But I haven't authentically felt that yet. I've had flashes and little fears of that. I've had, you know, videos removed, multiple at this point. I've had strange strikes on my channel and shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. I know exactly what you're asking me. And the answer is I haven't really felt that yet. I have not been canceled by like an audience yet. You know what I mean? Like I haven't had the Twitter mob cry to a company I'm working with and have them cut me off, right? Because that absolutely, I could imagine that being a super isolating feeling, especially if you know, if like other YouTubers, because I've interacted with in real life, people who have been properly canceled, and their experience is so fucked up because it's not just, oh, all these people are shitting on you online where you spend most of your time. It's also like most of your friendships are with other content creators and they are dropping your ass. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. That maybe would be my main advice is like, yes, have friendships that will be existent regardless of your perception online, you know? But yeah, I haven't
One more question before I go then.
Yeah, no worries.
How do you feel about it? Probably a bit compromising because not only are you a streamer and this is kind of like incentivized for you to give one answer, you've also had a pretty lucrative night tonight. How do you feel about the mechanism of super chats?
Well, okay. So super chats, you see, I don't like super chats because that's Google Corporation's method of donation, which means that they get like 30%, I think, of super chats or something like that. And so that's why I advertise the Stream Elements link, because then 100% of the money goes to me. But how do I feel about like that as a function, like the ability for people, like individuals, to directly donate to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am definitely biased because, to be clear, like the vast majority of money that I've made on YouTube has come from direct support through live streams, right? Like I've never had a sponsor ever. I might, but I'm not that eager to, I guess. And I've barely ever made money off of AdSense. The first time that I've made serious money off of AdSense was the Sneeko video, actually. And even that was not really, like, barely covered the amount that I spent on the Sneeko video. So yeah, the main avenue that I've received support from has been through direct super chats on YouTube, through live streaming. And so yes, I think it's a great feature. I think that it can be fucked up in a sense if you, like, I would not want to lead somebody on, right? Like because there's obviously ways to exploit this. If somebody has a real parasocial fucking obsession and they're spending money that they don't have, and if they are like interested in you sexually or some weird shit like that, and you're kind of coaxing that, yeah, I do think that's like fucked up. But as a general rule, when at least in my case, right, like when people donate to me, usually they understand. There might be like some payoff. Like I do try to make it feel worthwhile in some capacity, right? Like if they want me to read pages out of a book, or if they want me to do like a little funny fucking bit or something like that. But I think that they generally understand that, like, okay, you give me money, that goes directly into videos. And so I don't know, I think it's a pretty honest relationship, I'd like to think. But yeah, it also, yeah, for me, it literally just basically enables me to make videos. Like, I am not joking when I say that Philip motherfucker, sorry, that Philip holy entity that graced our presence this evening, if it wasn't for that guy, there are a good amount of the cooler parts of the Sneeko video I just probably would not have been able to afford or been enabled to commission. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like the super chatting feature. I'm a big fan. Personally,
I think super chats are evil, straight up evil.
Let's hear it. Let's hear the counter.
You kind of touched on it there, but you kind of didn't for me. When you say that there's an honest system, that there's a way that people understand kind of what's going on, I think either way, you are still putting someone in a position where, sure, you might read their chats idly from a chat, but as you've seen with other streamers or even people with really popular chats, if you want to be acknowledged at all by your favorite streamer, kind of like, regardless of your position, if you want them to take you seriously, you have to give them money. You definitely want to be read. You have to give them money. It creates this perverse incentive for viewers who, obviously, your boy Phil won't have the same kind of worries as someone working like an average job who just wants to support their main creator or whatever. I think it gives a more dangerous feedback loop for the person who is donating, where suddenly their only value in the stream is not just the things that they're saying, but how much money they can put behind it.
Yeah.
And for streamers, I think it's impossible for you to, unless you already have the strong moral principle and you're 100% aware of things, I think it's really hard for you to not get led by the money. It only takes like right people in the audience with enough money to slowly sway you and get you into realms of thinking or modes of content that you might not have thought.
Well, that's
Wouldn't
fact.
be that surprised if part of Sneako's radicalization was because of the fact that he was able to make so much money through streaming, mostly through super chats.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's the naivety of a lot of streamers, is that they think that because they are the streamer that they're in control, but your audience absolutely shapes your fucking brain. I try to be self-aware of this. Like, I try to own that fact. Like, I made it a meta meme that Phil is the fucking divine, like, controller of this stream now, you know what I mean? But there's like, yeah, meta meme, but it's also like, dude, he fucking dropped so much money on my head. I'll let him have fun. Like, I'll let him fucking get the other Phil guy banned. Like, it's fine. It's funny, I think. And obviously the Phil guy is not permanently fucking banned, but yeah, no, I think that it can be cancerous, and I think that it's interesting what you're describing, because a guy like Phil, okay, our boy, divine holy man, whom we, respect and trust and love, and who has been kind to us, a guy like that, right, like, who has that much money to blow or whatever, if they were to go into a fucking 18-year-old girl's fucking stream and drop that much money on her head, right? That can very, very, very fucking quickly become a very strange relationship, right? Because it's like, that's real power. Dropping $1,000 on a random fucking young person's head is a lot of power. You know what I mean? And so, again, our boy Phil, he is a very divine holy man, but like, it's interesting that you're kind of coming at it from a little bit of an angle of like being worried about how it influences the streamer, because I wasn't even considering that really. I was thinking more about the donator, right? Because that's like the classic meme is people will say how like hot tub streamers, right? Like OnlyFans type streamers, even like chat, what's it called?
Just chatting.
Say again?
Just chatting?
Yeah, not just, yeah, just chatting, but chat room, like not safe for work chat rooms, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like Chatterbait and stuff.
Yeah. Like, exactly. Like what Tate was doing, I would say, is exploitative. You know what I mean? He was actively trying to literally manipulate a fucking parasocial relationship between the viewers and the woman. You know what I mean? He was actively trying to fucking exploit them. But yeah, no, I do think that money entering the equation absolutely changes behavior. You know what I mean? Let me think of an example. I don't know. I've had people donate in the past, and it's like there's like this weird kind of tension where they clearly want something from me, and I'm resistant to give it to them, and they'll slowly, just basically fuck off. But that's because I've been on the internet for as long as I have, and I've seen, that, oh yeah, you can actually just kind of be mean to people who are being weird, you know what I mean? Or at the very least, you could say, I don't need the money so bad from this person that I have to be nice to them or whatever. But if you're somebody who does need the fucking money and kind of has to be nice to the person who is giving the money, then yes, your behavior will 100% change. You will try to fucking mask any of your true feelings. And in the worst cases, yeah, you might fucking fold to their desires. But I don't know. I try to keep that pretty overt, right? So like, okay, I actually do have a pretty fleshed out philosophy about this. There are people in this world, but specifically when you're a streamer, there are two types of donators, okay? When it comes to like stream donations, there are those who want to empower you, okay? Which basically means they just donate without much expectation, or it's like kind of, they donate and it's like, oh, thank you, man, I appreciate it, and they're just very gracious about it. And then there's people who donate to gain power over you, okay? And I understood this kind of dichotomy pretty early on, because I would have streams that are very, very in the lane of like, you can take power over me. I don't know if you've ever been or seen one of the torture streams that I've done, but that's kind of like the whole vibe of it, is like, oh yeah, you can donate $10 and I'll get an egg thrown at my fucking head. And so very early on while I was streaming, I always wanted to make a very clear distinction between, there are donators who just donate to be pleasant, nice, whatever, and just give good vibes, and there are donators who kind of like the fact that they have a bit of power over me or the stream or whatever. And I don't think that it's inherently a bad thing to desire power over the fucking content creator.
Here is a little bit of money for the Gokanaru super pack língua para fora.
Oh, thank you, Elite Eater. Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it's rational to like what kind of desire to have an impact on the content creator you're watching or whatever. But for me, the way that I do that is that I will choose the days where I want to give you guys like the power over me, right? Like when I pull out the bugs, you know what I mean? When I say like, give me $10, I'll eat a bug. Like that is me just giving like you guys the power, right? It's not coercive. I'm consenting to it, you know what I mean? But yes, I think that there are other streamers where that's not necessarily the case, and a lot of Sneeko's super chats ended up becoming like pretty extremist, like Groiper fucking super hyper religious types, you know what I mean? And that definitely influenced his thinking, right? Because it's like, oh fuck, this guy just gave me $300, and if I start shit talking, white people, because he's clearly a groiper. If I start shit talking white people, or if I, start being too sympathetic to the plights of immigrants or whatever, then this guy is not going to send me fucking money again, Yeah, it's a balance, man. It's a balance. You cannot get lost in the sauce. You have to try and forge your own identity. You have to understand what you are okay with and not okay with bending on. And I think I've done a pretty good job, but that's up for debate, I guess.
I always worry about a lot of people see streaming and streamers themselves as like friendship simulators.
Yeah.
And given that we're going through quite a loneliness epidemic at the moment, I always worry about the kind of person who is very isolated, very shut in, and their only real social interaction is through streams, hanging out in the chats.
Yeah.
And there's this mechanism that will slowly seep in of, hey, you're a friend and you sat here around with the friends, but the only way you'll have a voice is if you dip into that wallet.
Yeah.
That worries me from a point of like, if we start setting the expectation in people's heads that money is an essential part of friendship, that's really hard to unlearn.
Yeah. That's okay. First of all, if you're watching a streamer, that doesn't mean they're your fucking friend, obviously. Number one. Number two, you should aspire to have real life friends, like interpersonal, physical friends, whatever you would say. I know that I'm just saying that for the fucking chat. Like, this is something that I always say, as you're probably aware, which is that if you don't have any real life friends whom you can trust, whom you have mutual respect, then you're in a dangerous fucking spot, as you're kind of outlining right now. And yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who experience friendship on a transactional basis, much beyond live streaming, although of course live streaming too, right? But yeah, you can experience this in real life, right? Like if you have a decent amount of money or something like that, you can experience a transactional relationship. It happens a lot too with like dating or whatever. Like these things can become transactional if that's the way you enter them, expecting things to go a lot of the times, or if you don't know how they go and then it kind of gets fostered like that. I don't know if you ever heard the fresh and fit guys talk about their own fucking dating lives, But it's almost hilarious how much of a self-report they're making, because they're basically revealing that almost all of the relationships with women are entirely fucking transactional, like entirely transactional. It's sad, in my opinion, because it's like, yeah, okay, take the money out of the equation, and these people are not your fucking friends. They're not your fucking lovers. They don't love you, whatever. It's a conditional, very, very conditional relationship. And of course, you can argue all relationships are conditional. Yeah, but in my head, you wouldn't, like, having a relationship that is conditional on money is a weak relationship. It's one that can dry up. It's one that will not necessarily withstand the test of time. And so, yeah, you should be working to foster relationships that are less conditional, or that at least can survive if you are going through a really rough shit period, you know? But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else like you want to say surrounding that?
No, I'm gonna have to leave.
Okay.
It's been fun.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you, dude. Is there anywhere you would want people to follow you, or what's any last things you want to say?
Just join the Discord.
Hell yeah.
Love each other.
Dude, fuck yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes,
Right.
this is our boy. This is one of our Discord moderators. Thank you. It was very nice actually properly interacting with you, my friend. And yeah, no, I can tell you have a very nice spirit to you, man. I appreciate it. God bless. There was one donation actually that was kind of directed to you. Let me just see. Somebody, oh yes, Lumi in the chat, who was the one that was having me read Faulkner earlier. Lumi mentioned that they suggest to you a song by the name Important, and also Hating Stuff. Okay. I can.
I think they've tagged me in the Discord.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay. All right. Chad?
I will listen and give you feedback eventually, Lumi.
Hell yeah. Okay, Lumi, you had your moment. Okay. Thank you, my brother, for taking this time. I think you're like an hour past when you said you would have to get off, but I appreciate
Well, that's
you.
fine. I did a little. See, I know what you're like. I told Daisy an hour earlier than I had to, just so that way you'd rein you in a little bit if you actually wanted to do it.
That's genius. You're a genius. You're a genius. I can officially say that you're not almost a genius. You are a genius, because yes, it definitely incentivized me to call and talk with you earlier. God bless,
Have
man.
fun with either Flop 10 or continuing reading.
What was the first part of that?
Flop 10.
Slop tent?
Yeah.
That is what it is.
People just use slop, but I don't feel like it's like snappy enough.
Yeah, that's fair. I like call me fucking donut sloperator, dude. I'm the constable of slop.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. All right. God bless.
Easy, dude.
Have a good night, bro.